Shalom, Kohalo Yahabashim Yahabashim Kakadash. Double honors to the elder apostles and elder bishops of GMS, including the elders that came before them, that taught us his truth, and shalom and salutation to all the brothers out pushing the word in truth and in sincerity, the hopeful elect tabernacle of David. This lesson is going to go into the upcoming civil war and how they may be orchestrating a situation in order to ignite this whole thing. So, but in its entirety, you see this devil is now switching places by going and sitting in the dust. All right, we're coming out, we're waking up out of the dust, confusion, and this devil is he's sitting his ass down. This is Isaiah 47:1, King James. Come down, which is what they're doing. They're coming down from your high horse, from your kingdom. It's over. And the way you're acting right now clearly shows it, because you're in a death spiral right now. You're about to crash and burn. Come down and sit in the dust, O virgin daughter of Babylon. Talking about the United Snakes. Sit on the ground, okay? Not on no throne. There is no throne, O daughter of the Chaldeans. For thou shalt no more be called tender and delicate. Okay, so let's read that. Let's read this whole thing in the NLT. Come down, virgin daughter of Babylon, and sit in the dust. The dust means confusion, for your days of sitting on the throne have ended. No more kingdom. Your kingdom is over. O daughter of Babylonia, never again will you be the lovely princess, tender and delicate, Salakia. Take heavy millstones and grind flour. You going from the kingdom to the shackles at the sides of the pit, meaning you get ready for that slavery, right? Take heavy millstones and grind flour. Who does that, right? Well, the cook, the slaves do that. Remove your veil, strip off your robe, expose yourself to public view. Okay, you will be naked and burdened with shame. I will take vengeance, meaning payback, against you without pity. All right, so now we're going to watch a couple of videos here about this guy, right, who was at one time the king of Babylon. Now he's just Nero, Caesar. And we see this guy, his skirt is being lifted up, okay? And in these three videos, we might not watch it all the way through, but we will watch enough to show where this thing is going. They're going to use this situation to ignite this civil war, right? Because his followers, his cult, right, is going to go down with him. All right, so let's watch this. This is...
What's the difference?
This is MSNBC. DOJ vet says an indictment, okay? An indictment will be very hard for DJ Trump to avoid this time, okay? That's heavy. That's heavy, and we're going to watch this from the top. This one's kind of short, but listen to what this DOJ vet, Department of Justice veteran, says. This is heavy. They indict this guy. They put this dude in prison. What's going to happen? And they're threatening. They're using this guy, Lindsey Graham. They're all, well, if you do that, then we're going to have trouble, which is a threat. All right, that's serious.
We turn now to someone with experience in exactly the independent administration of the law, the former U.S. Solicitor General, Neil Katyal. Your thoughts on what is a very serious phase in all of this?
I really appreciated, Ari, your discussion so far, because politicians can't embrace this kind of rhetoric. I mean, it's a very scary turn for the nation when politicians start defaulting to threats of violence if the far right doesn't get its way. I don't think you get to say, oh, I'm worried about riots, or riots are going to happen, and not even condemn it or anything, as some of those excerpts you just did said. And I think it's also just fundamentally wrong. Our system is obviously strong enough to handle an indictment of former President Trump. I had the privilege of serving as special prosecutor in the George Floyd murder, and it's no secret that people said those kinds of things. We couldn't prosecute these four cops without there being riots in the street and the like. And I am so proud of the people, not just of Minneapolis, but the people all across this country, because we brought that prosecution. One cop has already been convicted, others are being tried now, and justice is being done. And if there's any doubt about kind of the corruptness of the criminal justice process, as Donald Trump is trying to insinuate, just remember, first, a federal judge has already found probable cause to believe that Donald Trump has committed these crimes. Second, if there is an indictment, there'll be a trial, not just in front of judges, but in front of a jury of Donald Trump's peers. And of course, Mr. Trump has the ability to appeal it all the way up to the United States Supreme Court, where, as he likes to remind people, he put 3 people on there. So, the idea that that would be unfair and that you need to riot over it, absolutely not.
Now, all of this makes sense. And you got to understand that when you put this on the mainstream media and start pushing it out, basically you're inviting everything. Okay, you're putting it in the minds of the people, right? And these Edomites are sore mad because this guy was their last hope. He's the great white hope. All right, he's their last vestige of holding on to the power that they thought that they had, which they never had. But now the truth is coming clear.
What do you think you're hearing when some, not all, but some of these MAGA allies suggest riots had to be condemned around the summer of George Floyd and all of that, as I showed? But here, riots, in their logic, seem to be something they're saying the justice system or prosecutors must weigh in their minds and then avoid. If people break the law, then they should avoid enforcing the law. It's hard logic to follow, as I said, because it is thuggish. I use that word deliberately.
Woo! Okay, so now we can see. We can see who the real thugs are now. Oh, just comply. Oh, just comply. Now the shoe is being put on the other foot now. Okay, and the real niggers are showing their face, right? And, I mean, that insurrection that happened on 1/6/01 or 2021, okay, that's very telling because there's going to be more of the same. See, this dude used the word thugs, which really pertains to Jakes. Now, okay, we're raising up out of the dust. They're going down, and the true niggers, the niggers of the kingdom are showing their face.
To be something they're saying the justice system or prosecutors must weigh in their minds and then avoid. If people break the law, then they should avoid enforcing the law. It's hard logic to follow, as I said, because it is thuggish. I use that word deliberately.
Thuggish, ruggish.
Yeah, it's thuggish, it's garbage. As George Sargent said in the Washington Post, Trump world right now is walking a line between predicting violence and actively threatening it. I think.
And what they're doing, as you can see, is they're trying to point at niggas and say, well, what about BLM? What about BLM? As they shirk responsibility, right? And instead of, just comply. You don't have to comply, but for us, when we get shot in the back, it's just comply. All right? So this thing is about to be a bloodbath.
Exactly right. And the reason for this is because Donald Trump has no defense whatsoever. We're 3 weeks into the search now. He has not given one explanation for what in the world he was doing with highly classified and sensitive national security documents involving human spies, electronic intercepts, and the like. And Donald Trump's not a quiet guy. So, that silence speaks volumes.
He's breaking the law at the highest level. Are they going to give him a pat on the back, or are they going to? And see, they do this every day. People at that level, they do this every day, and everybody gets a pass. Okay, but why are they making an example of this guy right now instead of giving him a pass? Because this is all orchestrated. You got to understand how this devil gets down. All right, they would give him the what's this dude's name with the I, Epstein. They give him an Epstein pass. If they wanted to float this thing, they'd give DJ Trump an Epstein pass, but they're not. They're making an example out of him. Why? Is it because he's not one of them? He's definitely one of them. This is part of their plan.
Yeah. I mentioned some of the reporting, reading a little bit more here new from the Washington Post. It says Trump wants to find roadblocks. He amplified Lindsey Graham's suggestion and basically says where Graham was rationalizing possible violence, Trump appeared to be threatening it. Recent history suggests when Trump nods at such violence, some part of his base takes him very seriously. And that's written really diplomatically, Neil. I don't know how much farther one has to torture themselves in terms of grammar and sentence structure. It's 2022. They took him literally when he said, come to Washington and overthrow the election results. We know what we're dealing with.
Exactly. I mean, January 6th is a perfect illustration of all of this happening. And, you know, if there are people who think, oh, you know, let bygones be bygones and so on, just the events of the last 3 weeks demonstrate, you know, the risk of not bringing a prosecution. Now, I don't think that's all that's going on here, Ari. I think that actually this affidavit that was released on Friday paints already, just in the redacted version that, you know, we didn't get to see a lot of it because a lot of it's blacked out, but paints such a damning picture of former President Trump that I think a federal criminal indictment is very, very hard for Donald Trump to avoid at this point, because the affidavit shows he stole these documents, he lied about it, he refused to give the documents back after the request for more than a year, he refused to give them back even after they searched and found highly classified documents on the premises, and now he's thumbing his nose at the Justice Department, FBI, you know, threatening violence and the like. I think it's impossible, virtually, for the Justice Department to look the other way, given all of this that's happened. I don't think Garland wants this, but I think Trump has dug a hole so deep that even though there's reluctance to indict a former president, and it's certainly never been done in the history of this country, but all those things I just read to you are things Donald Trump has done for the first time. No former president has acted this way.
Yeah. No, you lay it out. It's really important. Neil Katyal, thank you.
All right, so what does this mean? Okay, on the larger scheme of things, they wouldn't even put this on the television if they wanted it to go away. But they don't want it to go away. This is what they want us to see. This is what they're pushing for. And of course he's guilty. Of course he's done everything wrong. But do they ever take responsibility or accountability for what they've done? No. Why this time? All right? Because this is going to be the catalyst, right, to bring forth chaos and destruction so that they can try to, you know, bring order out of that chaos. All right? Meaning the absolute race war, the absolute civil war on the street between these underlings, these maggots, and see how they keep pointing to BLM, right? That's their real target. They're not worried. They're not going after the FBI and the CIA. They're going after you, Jakes. All right, so let's get the next one here. All right, we'll go here. No excuses. Okay, Slovakia. This one is MSNBC again, August 29th, yesterday. With no excuses left, Trump world turns to threatening violence. Okay, let's watch this one.
His defenders have...
Slovakia, we'll start at the top.
Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. On this last week of August, this Monday, I think it is now safe to say at this point that just 3 weeks after the FBI search of Donald Trump's Florida home, his defenders have run out of arguments. In the initial days after the search, Republicans, right-wing media, rushed to fill the vacuum of knowledge we had about what had led the FBI to take this admittedly extraordinary action with just about every bogus excuse in the book.
They just don't give a flying flip about how politicized they look, which is terrifying.
Or the rule of law.
The federal
Like a
government.
Gestapo.
Yeah, it feels that way.
You know, Trump's a memento guy. You've seen inside his office, there's a lot of clutter, memorabilia.
Do I know that the boxes of material they took from Mar-a-Lago, that they won't put things in those boxes to entrap him? How do we know that they're going to be honest with us about what's actually in the boxes? How do we know that was in the box before it left the residence?
What the
Wait, are you admitting in this idiot right here, right? Why are you suddenly, coming against your own people? Usually you going against Hebrews and what's the big switch now? Okay, all right. You got these people. You're making it good. Oh well, they actually do plant evidence, huh? You think? Now you're saying they planted something on Trump, but Trump admitted he did all of these things, right? They didn't just go to his house and start knocking on the door. That thing's been going on for half a year. Then they had to go to the house because he wasn't complying. Just comply. Where's that?
The residence.
What the FBI is probably doing is planting evidence.
Wait a minute. Sounds very familiar. Jake been saying that for years. Now, the good guys, just comply with the law and justice. Justice will be served and all of that. But now, they're planting evidence. You sound stupid.
Planting evidence, which is what they did during the Russia hoax. We also have a hunch they doctored evidence to get the warrant.
He had a standing order. There's the word I've been looking for. That documents removed from the Oval Office and taken to the residence were deemed to be declassified the moment he removed them.
Every single one of those claims the ex-president's supporters made to try to cast aspersions on the search has been shown to be wrong. They were all total nonsense. And over the last 3 weeks, every fact that has been revealed about the actual investigation of classified documents recovered at Mar-a-Lago has made the story more and more damning for Donald Trump. The chain of events, as we now know, shows the U.S. government, the Justice Department, the FBI, the National Archives, trying everything they can to avoid getting to the point where they would have to execute a search warrant. They asked for the documents back multiple times. They sent a top Department of Justice official to visit Mar-a-Lago in person. They negotiated with Trump's lawyers. They issued a subpoena. They did everything they could over the course, let's remember, of a year and a half to avoid where we are at now. But what are you going to do in the end? The ex-president refused to give all the documents back. They're not his. That's the plain truth. That's it. And so, as the New York Times noted last week, some of Trump's defenders have gone a little quiet. Quote, Republicans once outraged by Mar-a-Lago search have become quieter as details emerge. That photo is amazing, by the way. But others are doing what so often happens when people run out of arguments. They just resort to force, to menace, to the threat of violence. That's what we're hearing right now from Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina.
Most Republicans, including me, believes when it comes to Trump, there is no law. It's all about getting him. If they try,
He's above the law. That's what he just said. Well, the white man is above the law. He doesn't have to operate under these laws. He can do what the fuck he wants to do. Guess what? Them days are over.
believes when it comes to Trump, there is no law. It's all about getting him. If they try to prosecute President Trump for mishandling classified information after Hillary Clinton set up a server in her basement, they literally will be riots in the street. I worry about our country.
Literally riots in the
What
streets.
about BLM?
Senator Graham threatening violence if the government brings charges against Donald Trump for possession of the documents we know he had
Benghazi,
and were not his.
BLM.
Now, we have seen this exact pattern before, eerily similar. It is exactly what happened in the lead up to January 6th. Donald Trump lost that election, and then immediately, even beforehand, he and his allies began by making completely false, bogus claims about how the election was rigged, lying about it all, right? Cycled through this litany of stories, trying anything that might work, that it was the voting machines infiltrated by the ghost of Hugo Chavez, or the absentee ballots, or the signature matching, or the election workers who were smuggling things in bags, or the Italian satellites. Each and every one of them rebutted Each and every one of them, wrong, failed. When one argument failed, they just went on to the next. Over and over and over and over again until they were out of time and out of excuses, nothing left. And so what happened then? Well, then Donald Trump turned to his last remaining option, having failed to persuade, having failed in court, having failed to establish anything factually, he just went in the direction of menace and threats of violence. He told his supporters to come to Washington, rallying them, promising them it would be wild. He riled up what he knew, we now know, was an armed crowd, launched them towards the Capitol, explicitly directing them in that direction, where they proceeded to set off a deadly riot and almost successfully pulled off a violent coup.
Our country has had enough. We will not take it anymore. And that's what this is all about. Because you'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength and you have to be strong. And we fight. We fight like hell. And if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore. So we're going to walk down Pennsylvania Avenue. I love Pennsylvania Avenue. And we're going to the Capitol.
That?
What if I told you the 9-to-5 workday?
Slovakia. So as you can see, this thug believes he's above the law. He's going to incite these riots, this civil war, this race war. That's where it's going.
That is what it sounds like when Trump and his supporters run out of arguments. It's what we saw on January 6th. It's what it looks like. And I fear that is the path we are going towards again, with the rhetoric of people like Lindsey Graham going on national television and threatening a riot. And of course, it's not just Graham. Trump is doing his part as well, knows what he's doing. He's goading this all on, just as he was in the lead up to January 6th, on January 6th, just days after the search at Mar-a-Lago.
And even this broadcast, see, when you're showing things like this, okay, you are planting this in the minds of the people that are going to do it. Okay, if you didn't show it at all, that would be something different. If you didn't speak on it at all, you wouldn't inflame the people like this is doing. All right, so it's all mind control and programming.
On January 6th, just days after the search at Mar-a-Lago, he began menacing Attorney General Merrick Garland. There's no other word for it. According to an account from his own team, revealed in a court filing last week, the ex-president sent a message through one of his lawyers, quote, President Trump wants the Attorney General to know that he has been hearing from people all over the country about the raid. If there was one word to describe their mood, it is angry. The heat is building up. The pressure's building up. Whatever I can do to take down the heat, to bring the pressure down, just let us know.
See, now this is inciting this whole thing. All right, and they're repeating it. They're publicizing it. They're promoting it. Why? Because this devil knows he's through. Okay? No longer will you be able to proudly say, I'm still better than a nigger. Nope, that's over too.
Trump has also been relentlessly attacking federal law enforcement, writing on his fake Twitter about the, quote, atrocities being perpetrated by the FBI and DOJ having to do with the raid and break-in of my home, Mar-a-Lago. He referred to our law enforcement as that of a third world nation. Quote, they have no shame. They are destroying our country. He even shared an article that called the FBI the Fascist Bureau Investigation. Now remember, in case you've forgotten, just a few days after the search at Mar-a-Lago, a man tried to shoot his way into the FBI office in Cincinnati. A few days after that, a Pennsylvania man was arrested after threatening to slaughter and kill FBI agents, writing in an online post, quote, you've declared war on us, and now it's open season on YOU.
Now, wait a minute. Negroes aren't doing shit like this, attacking the government. Who's a thug? Who's the criminal? Right? Who's the natural-born killer? Who's the out-of-control? Who just comply? This don't look like compliance to me. All right? And now there's one more. Go ahead. Let's see.
This is not a thought experiment. It's not a hypothetical. There is very clearly a real danger in all this threatening, menacing rhetoric.
Yeah, well, we're dealing with the murderer, the liar, the thief, the thug, the devil. Okay? You're being exposed. All of you as you point fingers back and forth, right? And you're pointing at Jake and trying to scapegoat him. Guess what? You are being completely exposed.
And we're now watching it play out in real time as Trump and his allies, like Lindsey Graham, repeat the same kind of script that led up to the violent insurrection on January 6th, in which multiple people ended up dead. Thankfully, this time around, we should note, they're doing it with a much smaller platform. But it's also clear their attempts at intimidation have successfully entered into public debate across the political spectrum, even among establishment centrist pundits about whether or not Donald Trump should be indicted.
And that is all by design, okay? All of this is by design.
Lindsey Graham is not the only Trump ally who has argued that ex-president should essentially be above the law because his most extreme brainwashed followers will resort to violence if the law comes for him.
Wait a minute, just comply. All right, abide by the law, just comply, but it doesn't apply to you, right? You get to riot and burn shit down and attack government buildings and all of that. But what about BLM?
But it just simply cannot be the case that the orderly administration of democratic rule and a nation of laws can be vetoed by a violent mob, as it almost was on January 6th. Yet that is precisely what the ex-president is trying to do again.
There you go. One more. Now we're going to compare it to how they treat Jakes, how you treat Negroes. Let's see, what does it say? Just comply. Let's watch this one.
Assault the #1 blood pressure.
Slovakia. This is MSNBC. Trump's just comply lie gutted as indicted aides won't yield. Okay. Oh, just comply. Let's see about that.
For that.
Slovakia.
Trump and Navarro for that. Trump and Navarro both got very peaceful treatment through a warrant, while it was a more aggressive no-knock warrant used in the operation that led to police killing Breonna Taylor. Or take the recent case where Jacob Blake did for about 1 minute what Navarro legally did for months, meaning both of them, from a legal perspective, were not complying. Blake was seen walking away. He was not seen on tape trying to hurt anyone. And for that refusal to comply, police shot him 7 times in the back in this disturbing scene. We're not showing all of it. Here's what Lindsey Graham said about that exact shooting of Blake when it was in the news. Stressing, Senator Graham said, that Blake did not comply or yield when asked.
I don't know why the gentleman did yield when he was asked to yield.
First, that is legally the wrong answer. Police are barred from using lethal force only because a person is fleeing or refusing to yield. Graham's a lawyer and knows that. Second, Senator Graham's not using the same standard now for Trump when it comes to immediately yielding to law enforcement demands. And while we're at it, third, Graham's certainly not using that standard to apply to himself. He is currently fighting a subpoena, refusing to yield and comply with Georgia prosecutors who are just requesting his peaceful testimony, which can be scheduled anytime he's willing to yield. The hypocrisy is obvious, it's political, and it is racial. Those past howls to just comply mostly flow in one direction, as we've noted in our earlier reporting, which you can file under just comply, or if you're on Twitter today, hashtag just comply. Because it's all part of this larger sequence and problems. This is about justice and safety, so let me say, the point I'm making about just comply is not suggesting police use more force in more of these situations, but rather that we can see from this very public history that some right-wing leaders clearly view the police as one-sided muscle for a supremacist system. It's also clear that officers are able to use those less intrusive measures more across the board. If innocent Breonna Taylor was policed by the standard used for Trump or guilty, convicted Steve Bannon, she would be alive right now. And everyone agrees she's innocent. She was just killed by that type of police measure. If unarmed Walter Scott were apprehended by the standard used for indicted, non-complying Steve Bannon or Peter Navarro, Mr. Scott would be peacefully apprehended in handcuffs, not shot in the back. Bottom line here, both things can be true. The past refrain of just comply was totally selective. But this new attention on how some elites are so carefully policed can actually show a better non-violent path. In other words, folks, sometimes even a dumb political debate can lead to some smart points and real reform if we keep our eye on the ball.
If in fact a police officer gives you a command, please exit the car, you should say, yes, officer, no, officer, okay, officer.
Yes, officer. Joining me now is retired NYPD Detective Mark Claxton, leader of the Black Law Enforcement Alliance. We've been reporting on this. We just walked through both what's wrong with it, but what might be a path to better policing. Your thoughts, sir?
Well, I mean, you've pointed out brilliantly over the past week or so about just the hypocrisy that some people coming from privileged positions have when they are instructing others to simply and merely comply. And in reality, it's really a subjective instruction. And it's based on too often, just like other aspects of law enforcement or criminal justice, it's too often race-based. But it is clearly subjective, and it clearly ties into some of the discussions around privilege that we've had, whether it be racial privilege or political privilege or economic privilege, and the expectation and the direction and the instruction that people so often give is really targeted to Black and brown people or those who are less affluent or less empowered politically.
We have heard public commentary and analysis about this situation versus that. Does it matter that many Black and brown people are being policed in a way where within 10 or 20 seconds they're facing lethal force? And we showed examples, there are others, where compliance does not prevent the use of lethal force, as compared to other individuals who are given literally months to defy. And then somehow they still find a way to bring them in peacefully, which I'm emphasizing should be the goal for all of those who are policed.
Mm-hmm. It adds, for Black and brown communities in particular, it adds insult to injury. And something that really wasn't fully examined even on January 6th at the Capitol was the lack of compliance by those who were trying to take over the Capitol building, but also the extreme restraint showed by law enforcement professionals. So you can see sometimes, like I said, it's clearly a subjective situation because those who attempted the insurrection were failing to comply. There were officers who, in the midst of pain and agony, were demanding or making demands that would just totally disregard. Now, Black and brown communities look at that and wonder what would have happened had the insurrectionists been of color, perhaps. What would have happened? And so it adds insult to injury when you look at it from that lens.
Yeah, and we mentioned the warrant process. I think Americans have been reminded of how that works. You go to a judge. That was the case to get an arrest warrant for Mr. Navarro. We showed his concern before. Mr. Trump has complained about his process. Those were both valid processes. The emphasis has been that they were so carefully done. In the case of Breonna Taylor, who was wrongfully shot to death by officers executing a warrant, it was a more aggressive warrant. It was also, it turns out, illegally obtained.
Boom. There's the devil in the details. Okay. So it's pretty much over. All right. That's all we need. You can clearly see that this has everything to do with what is about to happen. Okay. This devil is being exposed. Let's get that again real quick. All right. Take heavy millstones and grind flour. Isaiah 47:2. Remove your veil and strip off your robe. Expose yourself to public view. This is what's happening. You will be naked and burdened with shame. I will take vengeance against you without pity. What's going on right now? See, the Most High is about to drag this devil. All right? All right, let's get this real quick. Isaiah 19:2. And I'll set the Egyptians against the Egyptians. That's your civil war, that's your race war. And they shall fight everyone against his brother. Jacob and Esau are brothers. And everyone against his neighbor, city against city, and kingdom against kingdom. All right? And the spirit of Egypt shall fail in the midst thereof. Its patriotic spirit is going to fail. And I will destroy the counsel thereof, all right, the leadership. They shall seek to the idols and to the charmers and to them that have familiar spirits and to the wizards. Okay? And that's what they're doing. They're like, oh, we got one last bit of witchcraft left in us. Let's use it. Well, guess what? It's going to work against you. All right? You're not going to prevail. All right? Your skirt is being lifted and Babylon has fallen, And we're watching it. Let's get this real quick. And I didn't mean for this to go so long, but those videos are very important. Because this is not over. This is where things are going. All right? Second Ezra 15:14, woe to the world and them that dwell therein, for the sword and their destruction draweth nigh. And one people shall stand up to fight against another, and swords in their hands. This is the race war. That's the civil war. For there shall be sedition among men and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their action shall stand in their power. That's them running up on the Capitol building. All right, so things are spiraling out of control. They're not going anywhere. They're making a case for it. Hey, that was 1/6/2021 was a while back now. All right, what's going to happen in these coming days? The moment they lock this fool up and cuff him, do the perp walk. Once they perp walk this fool, anything can happen. Right? And they can have, setups, psyops ready, to make it look like they got a bunch of FBI going to shoot up FBI buildings and stuff like that. This devil been waiting for this moment for all his life. Oh, Lord. All right, so with that, we hope that the elect are edified. With that, we're going to say shalom.